Ranger Base, this is Field Unit 3. Priority call. We need medevac immediately. One down. It's Dr. Knox. Repeat. Dr. Knox is down. Possible guerrilla aggression. We need airlift now. The voice that cracked through the radio was tight with panic, nearly swallowed by static and jungle noise. Somewhere behind the call, a chorus of birds shrieked. A second voice came on, breathless. He's not moving. We're losing time. October 3rd, 2021 had begun like any other field day inside Uganda's Bwindi Impenetrable forest. Mist draped the treetops. Boots sank into damp moss. The forest buzzed with invisible life, and the team was already 2 hours into tracking the Mubano group, one of the region's most studied gorilla families. No one expected it to end in blood. By mid-morning, the team was deep off trail, just northeast of Nkaringo. Andrew Knox was in the lead. He always was, a guerrilla behavior specialist with more than a decade in the field. He wasn't just a scientist. He was the one who taught the new rangers how to move, how to breathe near the silverbacks. He was the one they trusted to step first into the clearings. That's where it happened. There was no warning call, no mock charge, just a rustle in the ferns. Then an eruption of weight and power. The silverback, Bakari, struck with a force no human could withstand. The team screamed. Cameras fell. One of the researchers bolted for the tranquilizer gun. But it was 100 feet away, strapped to a tree for safety. By the time they got to Andrew, he was lying face down in the undergrowth. His sat phone was shattered, his notes scattered into the mud. If you've been with us for a while, you already know. We don't tell stories for shock value. We tell them because the world is still wild, because lives like Andrew's matter, because behind every tragic headline is a person who chose to walk alongside danger, not for fame, not for clicks, but for something deeper. So if you're still here, stay close. This one deserves to be told right, because this isn't just the story of a man and a gorilla. It's a story of what happens when trust, instinct, and wilderness collide. Andrew Knox didn't grow up in a jungle. He was born in Edinburgh, raised among fog and cobblestone, in a quiet neighborhood near the University of Edinburgh's Botanic Garden. His first connection to the wild came from books, old, worn field guides with cracked spines and yellowed pages filled with sketches of great apes. By age 12, he could identify every subspecies of gorilla and name their primary threats. At 15, he'd written a school paper so detailed and impassioned about mountain gorilla conservation that his biology teacher mailed a copy to a primatologist working in Rwanda. That scientist wrote back, Andrew didn't just want to study gorillas, he wanted to stand beside them. He earned his master's in primate behavior at Oxford, then joined a wildlife foundation as a junior researcher. By 28, he was stationed full-time in Uganda, working with the Ugandan Wildlife Authority on long-term gorilla monitoring. Locals came to know him for his quiet demeanor and his strange habit of whistling softly whenever he moved through the bush. It wasn't a tune, just a way of letting gorillas know he was nearby without threatening them. He called it a handshake from a distance. In the field, Andrew was patient. He could spend hours watching a single juvenile groom its sibling, scribbling notes into a waterproof journal without ever breaking focus. His colleagues joked that he had the bladder of a camel and the heartbeat of a monk. But Andrew wasn't naive. He carried tranquilizers. He conducted drills. He trained his team to identify the earliest signs of stress. Eye flashes, vocal huffs, bluff charges. He respected the line between observer and intruder. And yet, lines blur, especially when trust grows too familiar. Bakari wasn't new to Andrew. The massive silverback had been born in captivity, then released into a protected zone after a failed breeding program. He was known for his size, for the reddish scar across his left brow, and for his tendency to isolate during the rainy season. Andrew had tracked him for 6 years. There had always been something unpredictable in Bakari. He was smart, more than most. He used tools. He once dismantled a hidden motion camera with the precision of a human mechanic. But he could also be erratic. He once charged a ranger for placing a GPS collar on a nearby female, then returned days later and sat within feet of the same man. For months leading up to the attack, field notes flagged changes, increased displays, longer stares, and unusual vocalizations. Andrew reviewed the reports, made annotations, and began shortening his proximity time. Still, the morning of October 3rd didn't ring alarm bells. The forest was quiet. The Mubano group had been spotted at sunrise. Andrew, along with 2 rangers and a behavioral ecologist from the UK, followed the trail. By 10:47 a.m., they had eyes on the troop. Bakari was grooming a juvenile. At 10:53, something shifted. A crack from deeper in the canopy, a falling branch, possibly a monkey. The troop scattered slightly. Bakari froze, turned, and locked eyes with Andrew, who had instinctively stood a little too tall. That's when Bakari lunged. It takes less than 5 seconds for a 400-pound silverback to close 10 yards. Bakari did it in 4. Andrew didn't run. He turned slightly, lowered his gaze, angled his body to appear non-threatening. Textbook behavior. It didn't matter. Bakari struck like a boulder with legs, slamming Andrew backward into a tree. His forearm caught Andrew across the chest, knocking the wind from his lungs. A second blow cracked ribs. A bite tore through the fabric of his vest. Blood sprayed into the moss. The rangers shouted. One raised a baton. Another reached for the radio. Bakari stood over Andrew, panting heavily, his breath fogging in the morning air. Then, without warning, he backed off, retreating into the brush as suddenly as he'd appeared. The entire attack lasted less than 60 seconds, but the damage was catastrophic. Andrew lay still. His breasts were shallow. His left side was caved in, one eye swollen shut. Yet he remained conscious long enough to grip the hand of a ranger who knelt beside him. "I need you to get this right," he whispered. "Tell them why it happened." He lost consciousness before the medevac arrived. The helicopter touched down 42 minutes later at a regional field hospital. Surgeons fought to stabilize Andrew, but internal bleeding was too severe. He was pronounced dead at 12:41 p.m. The autopsy confirmed multiple fractures, ribs, collarbone, a punctured lung, and a cranial contusion likely sustained when his head hit the tree. Cause of death: blunt force trauma compounded by rapid blood loss. The report concluded the incident as an unprovoked aggression event, a rare but documented phenomenon among wild gorillas facing perceived territorial threats. But Andrew's team disagreed. They reviewed body cam footage, field notes, even scent markers left along the trail. Their conclusion: Bakari had shown signs of mounting stress for weeks, and the decision to proceed with such close observation had pushed him too far. News of Andrew's death spread fast. International media ran with headlines: "Tragedy in Bwindi," "Gorilla expert killed in Uganda," "Conservation work turns fatal." But those who knew him refused to let his death become a headline without meaning. Memorials were held across Uganda, the UK, and online. 1,000 candles lit the lawn at his alma mater. Donations flooded into conservation charities in his name. The Ugandan Wildlife Authority established the Andrew Knox Grant for Field Safety, designed to train rangers and researchers in trauma protocols and stress recognition in primates. Most of all, people shared stories. A fellow researcher wrote, "He taught me how to listen without expecting a sound." A ranger posted, "I wouldn't be alive today if it weren't for what he taught me about gorilla body language." His parents issued a statement. Andrew didn't die because he was careless. He died because he believed that understanding wildness means being near enough to feel it. In the months that followed, Bakari remained in the Mubano group. He was never tranquilized, never relocated. Andrew's final wish, written in his field journal, was clear. Let the gorillas live wild, even when it hurts. His team returned to the site weeks later. A stone was placed at the edge of the clearing. No plaque, just a stone. Heavy, unmoving, like the truth Andrew carried into the forest. What happened wasn't fair. It wasn't the result of a reckless thrill seeker. It was a scientist, someone who stepped forward so others could learn where the danger lies. If this story stayed with you, let it settle into something lasting. Support the people who do this work. Talk about the risks, share their names. Because the line between coexistence and tragedy is thin, and sometimes the only way to honor that line is to keep walking it with open eyes. Andrew Knox gave his life to protect a species most will never see in person. He died doing what he loved, yes, but more importantly, he died doing what needed to be done. And the forest, ever wild, keeps his story in its roots. Thank you for watching.